So today I'm just going to run through what I did to get myself out of a little bit of a pickle on vCenter. So I had to rebuild my vCenter server. This was down to a few issues, so the only way I could get around it was to rebuild the vCenter server. I didn't actually have any backups of the vCenter server. I didn't think there'd be a problem, to be honest. But what I was doing just before I rebuilt the vCenter server was using virtual distributed switches for both the VMs and the management. So with virtual distributed switches, the actual switches will show up on a host when you import them, but because there's no switch in the database on vCenter, you can't actually manage them, you can't delete them, you can't do anything with them at all really. So I'm going to run through today what I've done to get out of that bit of a mess, and also at the end of the video show you how you do backups in vCenter server. So I rebuilt my vCenter server, completely different name. I could have used the same name, but I just wanted to do it completely different and experience that scenario. So I've got my vCenter server installed and roughly set up on how it was set up before, with my my hosts in my three different clusters. So you see on here in virtual switches, I've got no virtual distributed switches on any of these hosts now, whereas when I imported the hosts I did actually have a virtual distributed switch left in there. So yeah, I'm just going to run through now on how I got out of that bit of a mess. So you can see I have the missing virtual distributed switch here. It says it no longer exists in vCenter, which it doesn't, because it's missing from the database. So how do you get out of this? So it's warning you, disconnect any VMs and Vmkernel network adapters that might be connected to the switch and remove the switch. So how can you do that? So the first thing I done was create a new virtual distributed switch. I then gave this virtual distributed switch a uplink, just accepted the actual defaults. I didn't really bother giving it any specific names, to be honest, just so I could identify it. So I'm just going to attempt to assign the VLAN for my management, because it's on VLAN 160, to make sure it's on the correct VLAN. Just double check. There's on correct VLAN. So now what I want to do is I want to actually assign the new virtual distributed switch to the host with broken, missing virtual distributed switch. So I add the host ESX3, click OK, select that host. Now you have to do something here, so I'm just going to add the uplinks, which I'll need anyway. So I'll just pick one which isn't being used. So that's a 10 gig port that I'm going to be using. So assign an uplink, just give it uplink 3. So that's assigned. So it should be fine, no issues. So I've now created an uplink. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to migrate the Vmkernel from the old missing switch to a new switch. So saying interestingly that the connection is down, so I'm just going to plug in the 10 gig connection, which I've just done now. So I've got a 10 gig connection on that switch now. So let's try and migrate the Vmkernel over to the new temp switch. So it's already attached, so just select it, manage Vmkernel adapters this time. So yes, I want to assign the uplink to that one. So yep, 160, it's on the correct VLAN. You see I'm pinging. Select it, make sure I've selected. So now it's going to be moved to the new temporary switch. Can't see any problems with it. So it's just about migrated. Should just migrate. Shouldn't take that long. So I had a 2 millisecond break there. So let's go just double check. Double check it is actually migrated. So yeah, it is on a temporary D switch, which is fine. So I can cancel that. So we can now go back to the host and remove the missing virtual distributor switch. So now that's gone. So now we're left with the temporary D switch, which is all on this vCenter, so it should be fine. So now I should be able to remove this Vmkernel over to a virtual standard switch. Let's just double check here, and see it's 173. So let's create a new port group for a standard switch. So just create a new standard switch, add an adapter to it. So I should really add the connected network adapter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens if you add a disconnected network adapter and try and migrate the VMK over to that. So it's disconnected. It's on the 10 gig, but it's disconnected. So it's saying all active physical connections. There's no active physical connections. So I'll add a virtual standard switch for VMs. So that's added. So I now try and migrate. You notice it's actually the physical adapter is disconnected. Let's try and migrate anyway to show you what happens. So you have to add the we don't have to add the VLAN, but I use VLANs on my management. So I'm going to create the VLAN ID as 160 because that matches what I've got set up in my environment. So now you see it's trying to migrate, but the physical adapter is disconnected. So if this went through okay, you'll lose your connection to your host. But what it should do is it should actually roll back the change, which it's lost the connection, and now it's beginning to come back. It didn't take that long for it to come back, so I dropped probably about 25 pings there, but see it's just started to come back, and in a second it warned me. There you go, so it's rolled back. So your network configuration change disconnected the host, so the vCenter has been rolled back, the host has been rolled back. So now let's delete that Vmkernel adapter as well. Let's try again. No, we've got connection. So I'm going to try and migrate it again, as I've got a working connection now. Set up a ping. So it looks like this time it has worked. So that successfully worked. So we've now migrated the actual Vmkernel to a new to virtual standard switch. So I can actually remove that temporary D switch now. It's gone. So now I'm back to a virtual standard switch. And what I'll do is I'll connect at that 10 gig connection. So it's disconnected at the moment. So 10 gig connection is just about to be connected. Just refresh it. Give another refresh. There you go. So the 10 gig connection is connected now. So just a quick recap of what I actually did there. I created a temporary distributed switch and then assigned that temporary distributed switch to the host where I wanted to remove the missing virtual distributed switch. I then created a standard switch and migrated the management from the temporary distributed switch to the new virtual standard switch. And so this is how we stand now. I have the Vmkernel switch, and I have the virtual machine switch as well, and both those have two network connections, a 1 gig connection and a 10 gig connection. Although this host has got two 10 gig ports, I could actually add that other 10 gig port to the same virtual standard switch. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you how to back up your vCenter server to a FTP location which I've set up already. So how you access that, you have to access the actual appliance by a different port. So it's basically the same port, same FQDM, but you add the 5480 port 5480 onto the end, which you may be able to change, so it may be different in your environment, but that's what it is in my environment. That's default. So basically, if you log into this is the Appliance Management. Log in with the root username and password that you created when you actually built the appliance. Should get me in. Maybe not. Right password, there you go. So this presents you with the ability to have a look at the networking of the appliance. Just basically shows you what it's using. You can change your root password here. You set the root password to expire or not. Gives you a few database statistics. But so what you can do in here is you can create the backup. Gives you a few options. So you can back up to a HTTPS server, SCP or FTPS or FTP. So I'm just going to use FTP. So it's basically warning me that they're not secure, but not to use them outside the LAN. So only use them on a secured network separate from your typical client network. So let's go in and connect up. So see here I've connected to my server, my share, my network share via WinSCP. It's a Linux box. I have one folder in there with a backup at the moment of 5th of May, so it's about 6 days old. So I'm going to create another backup. It's going to be placed in VMware backups, and I'm going to name it similar to this. So you give it your IP address of your NAS or your FTP server. Give it your username that you connect to the FTP server with. Use password. You can encrypt it, so let's encrypt it as well again. Encrypt it as well, so it makes it a little bit extra secure. So, and then let's create the path for folder. So today's date will do. So it's going to create a folder 11th for the 5th. So see at the moment that folder is not existing. So what we've got, password, okay. Needed a more complex password. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to just retrieving the size for backups now. So click next. Basically tell you where it's going to go. So we should go through OK. Do refresh. So there you go, it's backing up now. Shouldn't take too long to back up. There's not that much information in the database. So that's just about completed by the looks of it. Just waiting for the logs, I think, for the events, I think, to back up. do. Should do in a couple of seconds. Should finish. Just be patient. So there you go. Patience paid off. It did finish eventually, so it didn't take that long. So in here you should be able to see your backup file, and this looks like it's encrypted, I guess, because all of these. And let's have a compare the files with the unencrypted backup. In here, yeah, see there, it's missing the ENC off the end. So all of these are just got .tar.gz. So when you go into here, you've got .tar.gz.enc, so I guess that stands for encryption. So there's your backup. So in future, if I keep these backups quite regular after I've done major changes, if I have to rebuild the server again, I'll rebuild it as the same name and then just import the backup, restore the backup into configuration, and we shouldn't have any issues in future. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video has been useful to you and helps you out.